Let's move on to some other news in the media sector this week. The Herald and Weekly Times won't be appealing against the federal court's ruling on the Andrew Bolt case. The Herald Sun columnist was found guilty last month of breaching the Racial Discrimination Act. James, you've got the details there. Why not appeal?
Well, some people think they got off reasonably lightly. There's been a bit of commentary. Look, even though there was a negative finding against Andrew Bolt, what he wrote in the publisher, there was no real penalty imposed. So, you know, they obviously think, look, it's best to walk away, get on with it. They put out a statement and said, look, we don't agree with the finding, the implications it has with free speech, but we're not going to appeal. So I think that's it. There's no real penalty imposed there, so they're just going to get on with life, I think.
Just wanted to ask you too about some news in the executive ranks as well. Adshell's CEO, Steve McCarthy, has left the company. There's an acting CEO in place while the board looks for a replacement. Any ideas who might be in line for the job? No,
I think the fact that they've employed an interim chief executive. It's Rob Atkinson. He's coming out from Clear Channel in the UK. Adshell's a JV between APN and Clear Channel. Gives you the indication they're going to have a good long search, so it could be a little while perhaps.
And also news this week, of course, we're waiting for Ten's full year earnings out next week, but we did hear of Ten deciding to axe the 6:30 with George Negus program after months of low ratings. Sure. This move, what do you think? I mean, was it inevitable?
Yeah, we've talked about the show a lot, haven't we, on the program? Yeah, inevitable, I'm not sure, but a lot of people said at the start, mainly their competitors, that it'd never work, you know, putting up that sort of show against, you know, Today, Tonight, Current Affair. You know, those shows have been honed over the years on what the audience wants. You know, they're often criticised for their content, but you try and put other things in, it just won't get into an hour. It's going to become a more traditional television program, if you like, stretched over an hour perhaps. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk a lot more about Ten next week too, sure, with the full year earnings out as well. Interesting move. Ten's shares, of course, let's just check on those as well. They have been falling throughout the past few days. The network having a couple of broker downgrades ahead of those results next week. On the other side of the coin, Seven West Media shares have been rallying in recent weeks. With all the details, here's Chris Weston from IG Markets.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bridie. I mean, I think probably the stock which really stands out in the market, let alone in the media space, is Seven West Media. The stock's had a phenomenal ride since we saw that double bottom at $2.50 the other day. I mean, since that time, in I think 11 or 12 sessions, the stock's rallied nearly 38% to the highs that we reached the other day. It's pulled back a little bit to about 3.32 at current times. But clearly the market has got this trade very, very wrong. The market had been speculating they would struggle to refinance the near $2 billion worth of debt. And they do have relatively high borrowing compared to other companies in the ASX 200 and some of the other media companies. But if you actually look at their debt covenants, they've got an interest bill that they can pay 3 times over at the moment, just out of the cash that they generate for their media assets, as well as the free cash flow. Yesterday on Wednesday, we saw them sign a credit facility with 12 different lenders, which, with hindsight, I mean, Kerry Packer's really never going to struggle to attract borrowing from the big investment banks and the lenders at the moment. But quite encouraging that they did that 15 months earlier than they needed to, and ahead of other media debt as well. And the fact that the stock's trading on 12 times fully franked yield at the moment on about 7 times PE, you can see we're seeing a huge amount of short covering coming through, and the stock's done very well. On the other flip of the coin, we've seen Ten down about 5%. We saw Goldman Sachs cutting and expecting to see a recession in advertising spending, down 1 or 2% over the calendar year, and as a result they cut Ten to hold. Macquarie as well coming out and cutting the stock to an underperform. Now the company are expected to come out with earnings next week. They were expected to come out today, but they've pushed them back a week. We are looking very closely at what happens in terms of their strategy going forward, some of their costs, their programming, which we know has been quite weak as well, with George Negus being cut. In September they had a shocking month. That was down about 4.1% in terms of their revenue. But they're going to need something pretty big. They have pre-announced the results, so we do know those details. But the stock's down about 5% this week as well. So something quite drastically needed to be done there to cause a counter trend from that stock.
Well, Goldman Sachs' downgrade of 10 came as it said that it expects now a ad market recession in 2012 after downgrading expectations of economic growth in Australia and New Zealand. Just wanted to get James's views on this. James, what do you think? I mean, what are you hearing at the coalface? Are we heading for an ad market recession? Well,
I'd say the people I speak to, I think they'd be surprised to hear that. I think they'd say no, they'd debate that. But so it is a fairly negative outlook. Yeah. I guess the analysts thought it prudent to warn their customers that, look, this could be around the corner. The Australian market, of course, last time round was a lot more virulent than other places around the world. The advertising sector held up better, so I think a lot more people would be a little bit more optimistic. Sure, it's tough. Television's very tough. The market's still very short term, but there's odd pockets of good news, but certainly no one's really out there forecasting into next year yet with any confidence.
All right, sounds good. James, thank you for that. We're just going to take a very quick break here on Media Week. Up next, the winners from the Radio Awards, the ACRAs, and our interview with Grand Design's UK host, Kevin McLeod.